this channel. You should mute your microphone, guys. Okay, so go ahead and click on playlist, then you'll find the playlist that is right for you. So this is the first video that we made. So if you have not watched it, I recommend you to first watch it in order to be on the same page with us. This first video, you'll see it here.
Hello, and how are you?
So with that much said, let's go straight into today's business and get started. So yesterday we were able to set up our project, and we can find it here under Hotel Pro. So that's the project that we are doing, and we're able to create here the login page. So when you click there, you're able to access that login page. So I hope you are able to reach at that point, depending on the first video and the things that I shared in the first video. I hope you're able to reach at this particular point. So as I told you, as a programmer, it is not good to repeat yourself. So I'm going to show you how we can do what, how we can create a reusable components. For example, in yesterday's lecture, we said things like this field. We are going to need them so much. Things like username and the rest, we're going to need them so much. So it is good we create functions that we shall be just giving parameters. Then it returns for us this interface, like this interface, a common interface like this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So to do that, I'll just simply come to my project. As you can see, I've already opened my project, and here it is. Okay, so yesterday we created our function, this function file, and then in this function file we make sure that on top of it we are starting the what, the session, as you can see here. Now so we created our first function there. It's called text input, and it is taking parameters. Okay, and then it is returning just here some data, like you can see here. So if I come to our register.php, which is the file that I want to use, I can go ahead, for example, on top of this, I can go ahead and call that function. Here, you see, I can just simply go ahead and call this function. Then you see it is returning, it will be returning, sorry, I'm not in the, yeah, this is the register screen. So you see it is returning here something called some data. So I'm going to replace this data with the real HTML that we are viewing at this moment. Okay, I'm going to replace this data with the HTML that we want to view here. So to do so, I'll just simply come and cut this. Okay, cut this. Okay, so if I refresh, you'll see that that first input has disappeared. So let me go to this function of text input, which is this one here. So I'm just going to return the other data that I was displaying. I mean this thing that I've just cut. Okay, I'm just going to return this field, so that when I call this input, it should be returning that HTML. So we shall reuse that again and again, so that we can know, to avoid a repetition of work. So I can just simply put here single colon, and then I return it like this. Okay, I can just go ahead and return it like that. All right, so if I go ahead and refresh, you'll see that it is now we are achieving the same thing. We're achieving the same thing. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, we are going now to start substitute their things. However, there is a technique that we can use. Here it's called EOT. It's called EOT, end of file. This is how you use it. For example, I can say maybe view, or what you're going to return, then say equals to, and then you do like this, EOT, and then you end it like how, I don't know how to end it even. So that's how you end it. So you see, I'm just doing like this. I just open this. I create three less than signs, and then I put the word EOT, and then I press next, and then I put there in HTML in a simple way. You can see I'm able to put there in HTML. So let me just get this HTML that we are using, and then I remove this one that was suggested by Copilot. Okay, so you just put there your plain HTML. So this is one of the way of how you can write HTML in PHP. So you see I'm writing HTML in PHP. Okay, so you can try that. So I'm saving this data in this view, so I can go ahead and return it like this. So I just simply say return and then return that view. Hope you can see that. So by doing so, if I come and refresh, you'll see that you are getting the same result. Okay, now we want to make this dynamic. For example, there are things that are going to change depending on the fields. For example, I need this label to change, because someone will send, we are going to reuse this this field. So I want this label to change. Okay, so if I want it to change, I can just simply go ahead and implement the logic. So I can say my label text. Okay, label text label. So this label, by default, I can make it nothing. Okay, I can make it empty, or I can make it maybe field. Okay, field, something like this. Okay, so let me go ahead and replace it here. So where there is email or username, I'm going to replace it here. So to substitute a variable in this EOT, okay, you just simply put it there. So let me cut this. So you see, now this label is going to replace here. You see, I have here the word field. Hope you can see that. All right, now what I'm going to do, I want to be passing that field in these parameters. Okay, so let me go back to my register, which is here. So this is the place where I'm calling the input. So this is how you pass an array. Okay, so I'm going to pass, I say label, I hope that's the name that you're using, label, is it label or I don't know, I think it is E at the end. Okay, let's use E at the end. Okay, it should be label, something like that. Okay, so use the E at the end. So you see here, I've just put a square brackets, and then I'm passing label, and then I point at email or username. So when I do like this, it means that I'll have passed this data to this form. Okay, but if I refresh, you'll see that nothing is changing. Why nothing is changing is because I've not done the logic of presenting it. So let's go back to our input field. This is the input field. What I'm going to do, I'm going to check if this is an array, because sometimes someone may not send an array. So if someone does not send an array, so we may end up doing what? We may end up having errors. So to check if it's an array, to check if a parameter is an array, you can just simply say if is array is array. You check it like this, if is array. So I'm going to check if this one is an array, then I should be able to get the label. Okay, so this is the label, remember here. So I'm going to replace it with what will have come in the label. But before I do so, I'm going to check if this label is set. Okay, so to do so, you can just simply say if is set. Sometimes someone will not send the label. Okay, so that's how I check it. I just check if is set, and then I open the bracket, I say parameter, and then I pass the label. So if it is set, I go ahead and get this text word of ours, and I make it to be this label. Then after, I come and put it here. So if I do like this, you'll see that username and password, username or email has been what? Has been sent there. So that is how you check if something is set. All right, so we proceed. Now. There is a way how you can do this in one line. So you can do this in one line by just simply saying label equals to, then you just simply put is set. Okay, is set, and then you put a question mark, Let me explain it. Okay, so just simply say label is set, then you pass what you want to check, this one here. Okay, so if it is true, it will do the first thing here. If it is not true, I'm going to make it to be the same as the first one. So that is how you can do something in one line and say, so if this is true, if this condition is true, you can use this in many ways. So if this condition is true, it will do this first thing. If it is not true, it will do the second thing. So I'm saying if the label is true, you should go ahead and get the label that will have sent to us. If it is not true, you should go ahead and return it to what it was originally. So by doing like that, we'll be able to achieve the same thing. So you see now, I'll have optimized in a way that now if I need just an input, I'll just simply say echo input, and then I go ahead and say and pass the label and just put the email. So I can just simply put here email maybe or phone. So you see, if I say email or phone, you see it will automatically go ahead and change this. So by doing like that, we shall be able to do what? To dynamically reuse our component. So those are the techniques that you'll need as a web developer. So we proceed. So there are more things, there are more dynamic fields that you're going to put there. So we have the label. So another thing that might change is the ID. Okay, is the ID. Okay, is the ID. For example, you see this is the ID. So okay, so before you come to an ID, we shall need a name of this field. Okay, a name of this field. So let us go ahead and just simply put a name. Maybe let us make a name to be required, because there is no field that can be used without a name. So let me go ahead and check if a name is not set. So let me just put here and say else. Okay, so else I throw an exception. So if it is not an array, I go ahead and throw an exception and say invalid parameter. So it will throw an error if it will show an error if this is not an array. So it must be an array. It must be array. So you can just either die, or you can just simply throw an exception like this. Okay. Now I'm going to check if the name is not set. So that is going to be our first condition, because every field must have a name. So if the name is not set, so let me put here name to be null by default. So if name is not set, I'm just going to throw an error. So how do you do that? You just simply say, so I go ahead and get the name. So that is the name. Okay, so I've just done the same thing that we did here, the label. Okay, I've just done the same thing. So I'm going to check if name is null, I should throw an error. So I'll come here in the bottom here and say if name is null, I throw an error, name is required. So the name of a field must be required. So if I come here and refresh, you'll see that I'm getting an error that name is name is required. Okay, so it means that a name must be provided. Okay, so let's go ahead and you can pause the video and see how I've achieved that. So let's go ahead and substitute now the name. So the name can work as an ID because it's going to be unique. So I'll just go ahead and remove this email and replace it with the name variable, and then replace the ID here with the name variable, and come here and replace the name as the name variable, because in a form a name must be there and it must be one. So by doing like that, we shall have worked on that. So let's come here and pass the name. So I'll come to the register and then go ahead and pass the name. So this name can be, maybe let us pass username. Okay, maybe username, or can pass email, something like that. So that's going to be a unique field there. So if I go ahead and refresh, you'll see the error will disappear. If I come here and inspect, you'll see that if I inspect, I'll be able to see that the name is is username, and it has been marked as an ID. So here it's the name is here, the ID is here. So what we passed, it has been replaced there. So those are the techniques that you need when you're programming. So we can proceed to another thing. So let us look at another field that we may need to change here, is the input type. Okay, so we are doing this thing only one time. Once we finish doing this, then we shall just reusing this field. We shall keep on reusing this field. So I'm just going to go ahead and just I'm just going to go ahead and just put here type. So type, by default we can make it to be text. Okay, be text. So let's go ahead and check if type is set also. If type is set, we get it here. If it is not set, we make it back to type. So by default it will be text. So you may ask yourself, how am I getting these suggestions? So if you watch the first video, you'll see the extension that I talked about that will help you to suggest all these things that I'm doing right now. I just write one line and it just automates the remaining. Okay, so if you want to do that, if you want to know how that one works, watch the first video. So that is how we get the type. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come here and replace this type. So that's how we're going to have a dynamic field. So for the remaining of the project, things are going to be very simple. We're not going to suffer. So I'll replace here the type. So what else are we remaining with? So maybe I can just simply put here and say enter, and then I put enter the label. Okay, enter the label. So it will replace here like that. So enter the label. I can make it not to autofocus. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh. So if I come here and refresh, you'll see that I have here enter the label. Okay, enter the label, something like that. Okay, we can just finish the last part of it by doing what? By entering the value, by putting the value, because value is very important, so you can be able to resume with the data, something like that. So how are we going to do that? There is a logic that I think of. So first of all, we can make the value to be null. So value can be null. Okay, so we're going to be keeping our things in the session. Okay, so we're going to be checking that if there is a value of a certain field, if there is a value of a certain field and it has refreshed, it should be able to resume, something like that. It should be able to resume. So how are we going to do that? We can do that by just simply saying, remember here I've already started the session, so we can just simply come here and say we can be keeping all our form values in the session of the parameter of form. Okay, so I'm going to check here if is set, and then I'm going to put here session. Okay, so if it's set session, I'm going to put here a parameter called form. Okay, form. Okay, so I'm going to first check if the form session is set. So after checking that, the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to check if the value of this name is set. So this is how you do it. You just simply say value equals to if is set. So here I'm just checking if there is a form in a session. So a session is a storage where you can keep some, you can keep things, and when if you refresh, the things will be restored. Okay, so I first check if there is a session of form, or I can just simply, let's call it form data so it can be a little bit unique. Okay, let's call just form. I can call it form data. I don't know. Yeah, form data. Let's call it form data. So I'm just going to say if the session of form is set, form data is set, I go ahead and check if there is a value, and then I pass the name of this field, because I know the name of this field will always be unique. So if it is there, I go ahead and receive it from the what? From the session here. You see, I receive from the session and I set it to be whatever is in the session. Otherwise, if it is not there, I set it back to null, something like that. Okay, so we can do that. We can do that. Now, sometime data might come, we might need to force there the data from the form, okay? From the form, or maybe through the parameters. So we can also do the same. So the one which comes from the parameters, you should be able to override the one that is in the session. So I check, so this one is on top here, and then this is the second here. So this is going to override this one in case there is the value here, otherwise to remain the way it is here. So after getting this value, I'm just going to come here and give another parameter of what? Of value equals to, open bracket, and then put the value, something like this. So by doing like that, we should be able to receive the values that of something that we have set. So if I come and refresh here, you'll see everything is okay. Now, if I come back, I mean, can we leave here autofocus? Auto focus. Maybe you can leave it there. So it will be auto-focusing. Yep, maybe you can leave that one there, or maybe you can just let's add the logic so you can finish everything at once. Okay, so now if I come here, let's test the value part. So if I come here and I pass value equals to maybe username, okay, something like that. So here you see it is enter username. So if I do go and refresh, you'll see the value has come as username. It is the real data that has come, but we are not going to use this one for here. And if there is any value in the form data in the session, it will automatically do the same thing. So let me go ahead and also get the, maybe we may need to add here some classes. We may need to add some classes, something like that. So let's go ahead and do so. So let's go ahead and put here classes equals to null by default. Okay, so go ahead and check if here the classes are set. So we check if here the classes are set. Just the same technique, we go ahead and add these classes next to the form here. So if there are some classes, you see they'll add automatically next to the form here. So it means that if we want to implement classes, let's say that we want to add more classes here, we can just simply come here and say, so you see it's taking much of our time, but it will be worth it. It will be worth it when we start reusing it. Okay, so if I come here and say, I just simply put classes, I can just simply put, for example, BG danger. See, that's a class that's going to be added there. So if I come and refresh, you see here it has automatically changed to danger. So something like that. All right, so lastly, what we're going to do there, what we're going to do as a last thing, let's go ahead and get maybe error. Let's go ahead and display error. So let's go ahead and display error. So if there is an error, the form should be able to cry, maybe show something like green color. I think that's the last thing that we're going to do here. Then when I finish, I'm going to explain all of them at something like that. So you just save this one as an error. Okay, so let's go ahead and also do it here. Maybe you can be able to receive also the error from here. So we just do the same thing. Okay, so here it will be checking in the form if there is a name in the name field of this as an error, it will go ahead and do this. So let's go ahead and so here it will be null. Okay, so let's go ahead and do what, and check if it has errors. Okay, if it has errors, all right, so you can go ahead and say, I'm just trying to think. So I'm going to check if error is no longer null. So I'll come here near the form itself. Okay, near the form here, I check if the error is not what, is not null. So on classes, I'll add maybe here on classes, I can add let me first see how I can do the error class. Let me see if I can, how I can first do the error class. Let me first here. Is invalid, will it work for us? Yes, is invalid is working for us. Okay, so I check if there is an error. If the error is no longer null, I go ahead on classes here. No classes are going to be added there. I add the class called is invalid. Okay, is invalid. So how am I going to present the error? I go ahead and let me see. Let me go ahead and make some error. So I'm going to explain this, don't worry. Just put here. I think that can work for us. Okay, yeah, I think that can work for us. Okay, so let me explain it. So here next to the form, we shall always have what? We shall always have this class called we shall always have this div called invalid feedback. okay, invalid feedback. So it will be just having an error. Okay, so if there's an error, it will automatically show up. If there's no error, it will not show anything. I think that's all. Then maybe lastly we can go ahead and add maybe here maybe attributes, something like that. So if attributes, someone wants to pass attributes, like the way you see we had autofocus here, we can go ahead and pass those attributes. So let's create here another variable called attributes. So that's how you create dynamic things, attributes. And you see this thing will help us so much as we proceed. So attributes, I go ahead and check if there is attributes. Okay, if there's attribute, I go ahead and receive them. So I come and put them here. They should be at the very last end. Okay, so now if I want to, for example, to do autofocus, I can just simply come here in register, find this to be my automatic autofocus, then put attributes and then make it autofocus, something like that. So if I come and refresh, you see here it is doing autofocus. So it means that that attribute has been added at the end. Yeah, I think that's enough. That can be enough. Maybe this kind of design, we can put maybe something like called extra HTML, and then you put here at the end. But we can get rid of that. Let's just leave that for now. All right. So oh, we should add it. Let's leave it for now. Let's leave it. Let's proceed back to business. So there we go. So everything is now fine. Everything is now fine. Now we can proceed. Hello, unless pinned messages can. Hello, I'm unable to see what you're typing. Really? Let me reshare again. Let me share my screen again. Entire screen. Okay. Can you tell if I can see now? Put in the chat if you can now see. So all right, so there we go. Now everything is okay. So if I come here and refresh, everything is fine. Put in the chat if you can now see what I'm typing. Glory, morning glory. All right, so that is it. That's it. Let's proceed. So now let's go ahead and do now the one for password. So you see now the beauty is, let me just first go ahead and explain this one more time. So it is, we've just created a functions file. On top of functions file, we are starting the session. If the session is not started, then we go ahead and put our important function. The first function that we have put is called text input. This text input, we shall be using it to present HTML. So we have here some variables that are dynamic. For example, we shall be sending some data through session. Okay, so I just use this form data session. Also, we shall also be sending some errors through session, and I have done it like this. You can pause the video and be able to understand. Then here some errors will be coming, some information will be coming straight from what? From the form. So you can pause this and understand how it is. And then I'll make sure that the name is set. If the name is not set, and I'll make sure someone always pass an array. If it's not an array, it will go ahead and throw an error. And if the name is not set, it will also throw an error. So I go ahead and check also for invalid. Okay, so invalid, if invalid, for the class, if there's an invalid, if invalid is not null, I go ahead and make something red. I add on classes, I put classes danger, and then you shall have something that is red like that. So you can pause the video, or you must first watch the first video in order to understand everything here. So there we go. So we can now proceed. Now if I want to let's go back now to register a file. So you see, now instead of writing all this garbage, I'm just going to remove it. Okay, instead of writing all these things of password, I'm just going to remove it and just replace it with this one. Okay, so I'm going to replace it with this one. Okay, so I'm just going to simply say here going to put password. Okay, so I've just duplicated this one. So you see password. So you see what the advantage is. What the advantage is. So I'm just removing all this and remove it. So I just replace it with this text input. You see, that's the whole point. So I put here password, so I can make this one name to be password. So here I remove autofocus, but I put the what? The type, okay? The type here is important. So you can make type to be password, okay? So we can add attributes, for example, attributes, you can add an attributes of required, okay? So come and put here and put, for example, required. Make sure that you begin with space so it cannot touch another thing. Required. So something like that. You see, I can also come here and make this form to be required, something like that, so someone will submit with it. So if I come here and refresh, you see I'm having password here, which is so nice. Like, password's already there without too much pain. So that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. See that? Let me first see if this one was wrapped in something before I proceed. So password, was it wrapped in something? I think, yeah, there is password toggle. That's not necessary for now. All right, so that's it. So that's it. You see, that is it. So yeah, that's nice. So here, click on password, takes me there. All right, so let's proceed. Let's go back to functions. Okay, this is the label MB. So I can make MB always to be 2. Yeah, I want this space below to be seen more, last space. Let's make it 1. Yeah, let's make it 1, so someone, if they want to add, they can add on their own by using BR or maybe MB bottom. So we proceed. Now, after doing that, the next thing that we're going to do, let's go back to our input. So we have password. Now, which field do you need to when you're registering someone? We're going to collect first name. So I'll just simply copy this. We're going to collect first name, last name. No, we're going to collect name. That will be first and last name. And then we're going to collect name, then the email, then passwords. That's all. That's all we will collect. So let's come here on top of this and collect the name. So here the label is going to be, you see the beauty, we just pass here now what you want. So I can put here full name. So the name here can be name, and then this is the one that's going to be autofocus. Then we remove the autofocus from here, we make it required. Okay, so after doing so, we proceed to enter your name, your email. So we can make this one to be email only. So let us accept email, and then we can put here the type to be email. So let's put here type to be email, something like that, and that's all. Then we'll put here first password, and then lastly re-enter password. So this can be password, maybe password 2, that can be the name, password 2. Okay, so I can say re-enter password, confirm password, something like that. That's all. So if I come here and refresh, so that is our form of registration. If I click now on register, you see it is saying I should enter my name. All right, so that's it. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the logic. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put here, for example, my name, Muhindo. Okay, let's just go ahead and put there some other things like that. So it will not accept something that is not an email. Put password again. Okay, so let me put wrong things. So I can put remember me, and then it says register. So you see it's not accepting email. So I'm put here my email. Then submit. So it is submitting, you see, it is submitting. So it is doing the other logic that we did yesterday. Now, you see, it is submitting. So now we're going to begin now the logic of registering someone. So let's go back to our our input. To our form on top here. Remember the logic of registration, you're doing it here on top as how we discussed yesterday. So you see, it is now triggering this. So if I want to display the data that has been sent, so I can just simply say echo, if I come and refresh now, you'll see I submit again the data. You see that the data has come, the name is okay, the username is okay, the passwords are okay, so everything is beautiful. Okay, so let's just do some small validation. Then after that validation, we proceed to now the real registration. Okay, the real registration, not the real data inserting. Okay, so let's do validation. I see time is over, but let's just do the validation and we call it a day. So how are we going to do the validation? Okay, so now when I receive the form, this is going to be the latest form. What I'm going to be doing first, immediately when I receive the form, I'm going to get every data that is in here in the post, and I put it in the data, and I put it in the session data, okay, of the form. So let me come here to functions. So when I receive the form, immediately, to avoid losing data, I'm going to be putting it here in the session, so that someone should not lose data in this session data. Okay, so I'll just simply come here. Already the session is already started in this function of this file of functions. So I just simply begin by putting the post data there, so the data will not be lost. Okay, and remember the data is in array and it is having the name and the rest, something like that. Okay, so now let's say what we're going to validate. First of all, we're going to make sure the name is okay. But the name is okay because I've already validated from front end. Maybe we can validate the email, and okay, so let's validate the email. Let's validate the email. At least the email is validated. Email equals to username. So I'm going to validate the email. So to validate the email, you just simply say so this is the function, the inbuilt function, PHP inbuilt function that we use to validate emails. Just simply say filter variable, and then you pass the email, and then you say filter validate email. You write exactly as it is here. Now if there is an error, you see, if there's an error, I just simply say error in username. Remember, we are using username this side, so don't mix the things. We are using the username as the name, so don't confuse them. Okay, however, you can use anything, but here just what I'm making sure that you don't forget you're using the username. So you see, if I have an error, I just simply say session in the section of errors, put the session in the name of username, and then say put invalid email address, something like that. But remember, the data has been saved. So after doing like that, let me stop echoing here. Okay, let me just go ahead and redirect back. Okay, redirect back. Okay, so I just simply say header, and then put location, and then I put register.php. So here I'll have redirected back. Okay, and remember, it's going to go with this error in the sessions, and the error will be displayed accordingly. All right, so after doing that, I make sure that it does not proceed here, so I die. Or you can just simply do what? Exit the system. Exit the program immediately. So our time is up. So let's go ahead and try that. So if I come here, but the email is valid, so we don't expect a redirection. So let's first get here. So I refresh. The email is valid. It redirected. Okay, it just brought back the data, so everything is okay because I did not die on top there. So everything is okay. So what we're going to validate next, we're going to validate the what? We're going to validate the username. Okay, the username. Sorry, the password. If the passwords don't match, let's validate if password don't match. So let's go ahead and get password 1 equals to the one of password. So it's how I'm getting the data in the post, and then you say password 2 equals that. So let us check if the password are not okay. So I just simply say if password are not matching. So I just go ahead and check if password 1 is not equal to password 2. I go ahead and say in session of errors, put in the password section, say passwords do not match. Okay, passwords do not match, and then I redirect back using location header, location register.php. So if it goes beyond here, I can just simply say echo pre-tag, say maybe, and then I go ahead and dump whatever we want to. So I know passwords don't match. Let's see if our error will work. So let's go ahead and refresh. So we lost the data. Oh my god, we lost the data and it did not display the error. Okay, so let's see if we are doing it the right way. So session has started. Let's first see if there is anything in session. Let's see if there's anything in session. Print R and then die. Just simply come here and put echo. Let's try and refresh and see. See, the data is in session, even the error is in session, but I don't know why it's not displaying it. Let's see. So you have form errors and you have password. Yes, and the data is also there. So I don't know why. Let's find out. Let's find out, and then we call it a day. Let's find out. So let's go to our function. So our function is here. Let me see if session. So you come here. If form data is in session of a field. So just let me first go ahead and die from here and see if it will stop from there. If I refresh, yes, it is stopping from there. So why is it not setting the value? Okay, so let me go ahead and echo and just die with this value, and we see why is it not displaying the value. Let's see, let's find out. So you see the value is null. Oh yeah, so the problem is here. The problem is here. So you have to be form data, not form. You see, this is the problem. So this is form data, and this is going to be form errors. So that is the error that we have been doing. So I hope now we should be able to restore our data. So now everything, but still did not work. Let's find out why. So if it's set, should do this. Let me just first echo pre-tag. Let me first echo this. Let me first die with this session, and I mean with this value, and we see. Let's finish this so that tomorrow we start with the database. Sorry, it's another language. Refresh. It is not coming. Why? If is set session the name. Let's see. Why is data not coming? Undefined key. So the keys are undefined. Let's first see. Form data. Session. If is set session. And then I die here. So yeah, we have form data. It is there. See, form data is there. Let's go ahead and display the name. Maybe the name is not coming properly. So you have form data and the name is here. It's an array. Oh yeah, I see the problem. I see the problem. So that's the problem. Yeah, I see the problem. So the problem is we are doing these things on top before we set the name. You see, the name is still null. So I have to do these things after we have determined the name. So yeah, I have to be here. So this is where we're determining the name. Okay, then you have to do these things maybe here after checking the name is not null. So that is where I have to do these things from. So yeah, everything should be now be fine. Refresh, boom, everything is okay. So you see, everything is okay. Only that I see everything is having an error. I don't know why. Okay, so I don't know why. Okay, so when do we set session error? Check if, okay, so I see everything is bringing an error. So error, form errors. So how did we set this error on top here? Form errors. So if it is here, it is in password. So form error. If you set form errors, just put this one here. I think it will help. Let's refresh. Yeah, if you set form error and that, yeah, everything is now fine. Everything is now fine. Yeah. Okay, so if the presentation is not visible, don't worry, we shall share the video. So everything is fine. So we had to first check also this. If it's not set, then you go ahead and reset. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, that's it. So now tomorrow we'll start from there. So if I go ahead and put here